Is Zenith worth the hype? I asked this question 7 months ago after the first alpha, and I got nearly burned at the stake in the comments section for some of the criticisms I made, because the game has like a cult-like following that's even more powerful than the cult of Shrek. Well, now after years of anticipation, years of considering learning how to develop games just to apply to work at Ramen VR so you could move the development along, years of hyping up the game to SAO levels in our head, finally I played the latest beta, and the game is now releasing to the public. Is it worth the hype and almost cult-like following? Before I answer that, let's remember this is in beta. This is not final gameplay, but also the game is set to release like 10 days after I got this footage, so unless the developers at Ramen VR have been snorting Adderall and cocaine, you can expect most of the things in this video to be the same at release. So short answer, will you enjoy this game? Well, if you really enjoy MMOs with less than amazing combat and long grindy gameplay, you'll love Zenith, and I'm not saying that in a passive-aggressive way. It's an MMO, and that's how MMOs are, and Zenith is absolutely, without a doubt, the best VR MMO that has ever been made to date. All that said, it is, again, an MMO, and I suspect a lot of people will try this game not realizing what that means, and they'll end up disappointed when the combat isn't as exciting or as riveting as the combat in everyone's favorite, murder simulator. MMOs are built to be played for hours. You're meant to make friends and spend hours grinding levels and mundane quests, so if that's what you're looking for, you're gonna love Zenith. And even if leveling or grinding quests isn't your thing, there's a lot to love about Zenith. For one, I absolutely love the environments. The world is massive, considering it's all running on Quest at least. Like seriously, this might be the only actual open world game available on Quest with a map this big. I spent like an hour wandering around the world and I barely saw like a quarter of the map. If you like big open worlds that you can explore, you'll absolutely love Zenith. Also, there's cooking, like actual cooking. You have to gather ingredients and make food in your very own cooking station. It's like a fun little mini game, and I rather enjoy it. If you really want, go on down to the Japanese-inspired tavern when you're done, and then serve your friends some orange creamsicles that you made yourself from ingredients that you gathered around Zenith. And yeah, I'll be the first to admit, this isn't Cookout VR. You're not about to spend hours, cooking random recipes in Zenith. But it is a core gameplay element, and I actually think it's pretty cool. Now, when it comes to combat, this isn't as boring as most MMOs, where you just set a macros and then be fine. This is VR, and they make full use of VR with the combat, whether that's swiping your hands to cast spells or swinging your sword in specific ways to get the most damage. Now, I didn't play much as Blade Master, but as a mage, the magic system is pretty good. You unlock various spells as you level up, all of which you can use with a variety of swiping gestures or button combinations. It's a pretty good magic system if you want to have lots of different spells. In fact, when I play Skyrim, I use a mod to implement a pretty much the same controls to cast spells there. So Zenith definitely has the right idea. It's not Blade and Sorcery, but it is fun. Now, I have to address a few complaints I had in my first video, and just to be clear, I was pretty harsh on the game in that video, but only because I have been looking forward to this game for years and I want to see it do well. And some of the complaints I had are still valid and unresolved despite the game now being set to release. For example, I pointed out how I didn't like the positioning of the weapon holsters in the game and how they use orbs, which kind of kill the immersion and general aesthetic, but people just kept commenting,
"But it's an alpha, stop complaining."
Yeah, well, the game is releasing and the weapon positioning still sucks. Maybe I'm the only one with this complaint, but it would be nice to control where the holsters lay on your body so that, you don't have to see your weapons just floating in front of you all of the time getting in your way. This is something that After the Fall is implemented really well in their game to accommodate all kinds of playing styles. Another complaint I had in my video was that the game lacked a clear theme. I mean, the game had this fantasy demon ghost dude next to baby shark pirate monsters, so that was confusing. I mean, is it really that outrageous for me to think that a game would do better with one clear theme and not attempt to be a Japanese cyberpunk sci-fi medieval futuristic fantasy pirate Venetian conglomerate? And with that said, I actually love how the game looks. Everything from the slums under the city where you spawn to the plains just outside. The game looks phenomenal, and it's running on Quest. Yeah, it has a more cartoony art style, but it looks great for what it is, so despite all the various genres, I still really like the general aesthetic, and I'd say the graphics have improved drastically since the first alpha. The only complaint I have with the graphics is the character models. I don't like how the hands look like they belong to a girl who just painted her nails, and she's being extra careful to make sure they don't touch each other while they dry. Plus, I'd love to see more character customization, like beards, for example. I mean, who wouldn't love to have a massive wizard beard in an MMO? Come on. Also, let's talk about the fairy wings. I got a lot of hate for not liking the fairy wings in my last video. I'm sorry, they're just not my aesthetic. If you like them, that's fine. My original complaint is that I wanted options and customizability. I didn't want to be playing a fairy MMO. Thankfully, a dev has clarified that they only appear on the mage class, and even then they hinted at it having some, some outfits that don't have wings. So that's cool. Hopefully we get that in the release. Now, the biggest complaint I had was with their flying mechanic, and I'm glad I criticized it, because my original criticism was basically that they admitted to stealing the mechanic from Population 1 because it was popular in Population 1. Now, it isn't inherently bad to take ideas from other games, inspiration and stuff like that, but I wanted to see them make this feature their own, turn it into a core function of the game and not just a, cool mechanic thrown in as an afterthought because it was popular in a different game. Well, I'm glad I made this criticism because they've since taken their flying and they've turned it into something really unique, beautiful, and fun with their sensitive flying. Sensitive flying allows you to tilt your hand to control the angle of the glide. You can use it to drop quickly and gain momentum, then turn to swoop up higher than before. It is much more interesting than the basic Pop 1 flying mechanic, and it works so much better for this style of game. My only complaint right now is that if you have zero momentum, like when you're first, flying, and you aren't pointing your hand exactly down, you end up just floating in place with wasting stamina as you fly into an invisible barrier. It's counterintuitive because I'd like to be able to glide gracefully forward like in normal gliding, but if you tilt your hand, just enough to actually go forward, you end up dropping pretty steeply. I don't know, it takes some practice to get used to it and figure it out, but it's super fun once you do figure it out. I just feel like the system could be improved upon to make it a little bit easier at first, a little bit more intuitive. And, of course, I think the devs are working on that. Devs are always trying to make the game better. Overall, the game isn't perfect, and there's a lot of features that I know they plan to add after the release. So the game you're getting now isn't necessarily going to be the same thing you'll end up playing a year from now. The devs have worked hard to make this amazing game, and they plan to continue working harder and harder to improve it and fix all of the different things that need to be fixed and make it so much better than it already is. It really is, hands down, the best MMO for VR, and I'm sure in a few years' time, the theme music is going to become super nostalgic as we all sink hours and hours into this thing over the next couple of years. So should you buy it? Yes, I'd say go ahead and get the game, at least try it out and see if you like the style of game that it is. Also, RumVR, you should totally make me a partner content creator because I've been super hyped for this game for years and no one is happier than me that it's finally releasing. Okay, bye! Real quick, big thanks to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members. You all make this channel possible, so thank you.